Alright guys, today we're going to talk about area and circumference of a circle and how to find them. It's pretty much memorizing simple formulas and some parts of a circle. Okay, so let's first talk about the circumference of a circle. What you want to understand about the circumference is it's the idea of how far around in length is my circle. In other words, it's the perimeter of a circle. So if I took a measuring tape and started here and measured all the round in feet or inches or whatever it may be, I want to know this distance. What is this length around the circle? To find it, we can have two formulas. The first formula involves the radius. The radius is a measurement or a distance that goes from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. So think of it as almost the distance of the halfway point of the circle, from the middle of the circle to the end. That is radius. When we're using the radius measurement, we use the first formula, 2 times pi times r. Okay, so again it's 2 times pi times r. Diameter, on the other hand, so that's radius. Diameter, on the other hand, is simply a line that goes all the way across the circle, straight, but through the center of the circle. So we can think of this as 2 radius put together. 2 radius back to back put together, and this is called the diameter. So when you are given the diameter, the formula for the circle in diameter is this formula here. Okay? Again, the formula for the circumference of the circle. So the diameter would be this measurement all the way across the circle. All right? Either way, what I prefer to do, even though I have to show you both, is that this is probably the one we're going to most often use. Whether we got the radius or the diameter, we can always use 2 times pi times r. You might be wondering, what the heck is this symbol? This is pi. Pi is what we call an irrational number. It's a number that exists, but we really don't know how to, I guess, not use it. We really don't know the exact number of it. Okay? So it's called irrational, and it comes with this symbol. But the value of it is usually used as 3.14 in your calculator. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But we'll get into that as we go along. So, if you look, we're going to do example A here, where we're going to have this circle, and I'm going to show you how to use both of these, okay? And we'll talk about this little parentheses right now, but we're going to find the circumference. So I know I have to use these formulas. So hopefully we get to memorize these formulas, all right? So let's use the first formula, which is diameter. D stands for diameter times pi. So using this formula, circumference is equal to diameter times pi. Okay? So if you look, I am given the diameter. The diameter is this length all the way across. And we know that length is 10. So instead of diameter, I'm going to plug in 10 here. So my circumference is equal to 10 times pi. Okay? And I'm going to show you how to compute this later, but that's simply what we're going to do for now. All right? Because later on we're going to talk about how to put this in our calculator. So that's using circumference formula of diameter. Okay? Now I want to use my other formula. What if we want to use circumference, but we want to use 2 pi r? We want to use the radius formula. So 2 times pi times r. Okay? Well, all we have to understand is this idea. The diameter is actually just 2 radius put together. So if you can imagine, here's one radius, and then here's a second radius. It's basically 2 of them put together. So if the diameter is 10, that means each radius has to be 5. So I now know that my radius is 5, so I can go ahead and use this formula. So it's 2 times pi, and my radius is 5. And we would plug it in just like that. Again, I will show you how to compute this in a little bit, but for now, I just want you to get comfortable using these 2 types of formulas. This formula here is the one we're probably going to use more often, finding the radius. If you are given the diameter, you can always find the radius by splitting the diameter into 2 parts or dividing it by 2. Okay? All right, so that's circumference. Let's go ahead and head into area of a circle. So circumference of a circle is, think of it as the pizza crust. Okay, we want to know the distance of the pizza crust. Well, area of a circle is, we don't really want to know the distance of the pizza crust. We want to really know how much pizza do I really have? So how much space, how much area is the entire pizza, including the inside part of the pizza? The crust, everything. So this is the area idea. And the formula for area is given here. We're going to use radius again. R stands for radius, and it's pi times radius to the 2nd power. So remember, R is going to give you or stand for radius. So it's important to know R for all these things. All right, so let's do example B. Okay, again, we're really not going to compute it. We're just going to practice using this formula. So in order to find the area of this circle, I need to find the radius. So to find the radius, let's first find the center. So this red dot represents the center, and the definition of radius is, if you look above, is the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. So from the center to any edge of the circle. But I'm going to keep this simple, and I'm simply just going to count to the right. What's the difference from the center to the edge? And all we have to do in this case to find the radius is count. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So based on those jumps, I have a radius equal to 4. So what I'm going to do now is since I have my radius, I can simply take my radius and just plug it into the formula. So the area of my circle, that's what this means, is equal to pi, which stands for 3.14, times 4, which is my radius, to the 2nd power. And I'm going to do a little math here. And we know 4 to the 2nd power is 4 times 4. So this is really going to give me pi times 16. Okay? And this would be my area. Again, we'll compute it later because we're going to talk about how to compute these things. All right? So let's go ahead and find the circumference and area of example C. Go ahead and do that and see if yours problem matches mine. All right, so what this problem says we have a car, and the tire has a radius of 30 inches. So let's pretend this red circle is my tire. Here's the center, and I now know that the radius is 30 inches. So I'm going to put 30 here, from the center to the edge. So I know my R is 30. Now I could just simply use the formulas I need to solve for the circumference and the area. So let's do circumference first. So the circumference of this bad boy is this formula, C equals, and we're going to use radius, so it's going to be 2 times pi times r, 2 pi r. All I have to do is plug in 30 for r. So it's 2 times pi times 30. Okay, and I can actually clean this up a little bit more for now, because I know that 2 times 30, I can do this math. I'm not going to do anything with the pi yet. I'm going to show you how to handle that in a little bit. But 2 times 30, I can say my circumference is 60 times pi. Okay? So now that's circumference. Let's find the area of this. And we know that the area formula is pi times r to the second power. So now we again know r, so we're going to plug in 30 in for r. So it's pi times 30 to the second power, and we're going to actually do 30 times 30. We can do this math. 30 times 30 is 900. So our area is pi times 900. Again, we'll leave it like that. Oops. We'll leave it like that, and I'll show you how to compute the pi in a little bit, because there's 2 different ways. All right? Okay, so that's circumference and area formula. Now let's go into what do I mean by computing. Well, there's 2 ways to compute pi when you're finding circumference and area. The first way is probably the fastest way, the simplest way, is called the exact measure. That means we're not going to round. We don't want any decimal places. We don't want decimals at all. We actually don't even want to multiply 3.14. We're going to leave our answer in pi form. This is called exact measure. I'll give you an examples of both of those. When we have an approximate measure, you're going to be asked to round a decimal. This is where you actually use your calculator, and instead of using pi as a symbol, we use the number 3.14. Okay? This is where you end up rounding off. All right? So what does this look like when we deal with it in a problem? Let's look at example D. So a Ferris wheel has a diameter of 40 feet. What is the exact circumference? What is the approximate area? Okay, so let's look at this Ferris wheel and understand what it's saying. In this Ferris wheel, it says from the center here and all the way across, because we're dealing with diameter, all the way across this Ferris wheel, it's 40 feet. So this is 40 feet. All right? So what I like to do is, instead of using diameter, like we have here, this is diameter, I want to turn this into radius. So remember, diameter is just 2 radius, or 2 radii. So if the diameter is 40 feet, what is the radius? What would this measure be? Which we will call the radius. All right? And hopefully you understood what I was talking about, but that measure would just be half the diameter. So that means my radius, my R, is going to be 20. So we're going to use R for the circumference formula. So my circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. And all I have to do is plug in, always find your r, plug it in. My r is 20, so my circumference is 2 times pi times 20. And now I can do the math. I can multiply 2 times 20, and that's going to give me circumference equals pi times 40. And here's the thing. If you look at the question, we want the exact circumference. So if you look, exact means we are not using decimals. We're going to leave our answer in pi form, which means C, or our circumference, is going to be 40 times pi, or pi times 40. In other words, we write our answer as circumference equals 40 pi. This would be our exact answer. We don't have to do anything with the pi. We just have to show that we're multiplying, but we're not actually going to multiply. We leave it in symbol form, or pi form. This is exact. Okay? Now, if I wanted to do the approximate, I would take the exact, so 40 times pi, that's my exact, but now I would actually change my pi into its number value, which is 3.14, and I would multiply that out. And if you do that correctly, the approximate value is equal to 125.6, and this would be considered your approximate answer. Again, these are the same answers. One is exact, one is a decimal or approximate. Hopefully we understand the difference. Now, let's finish this problem. We want to find the area. If you look at the directions, we want the area in approximate. So we're going to kind of multiply everything out. So area formula is pi times r to the second. So let's plug this stuff in. So it's pi times 20, that's my r to the second, which gives me pi times 400. And again, we want the approximate, so we are actually going to multiply this out, which is 3.14 times 400. So the approximate area is going to be 1,256. All right. So again, this was because we needed approximate. All right, let's do example E. It says the circumference of a tree is 20 feet. What's its diameter? Round to the nearest tenth of a foot using 3.14 for pi. You know what? On second thought, we're going to save this for class. Let's jump into the next example. All right, let's do example F. A slice of circular pizza measures 9 inches in length. What is the approximate area of the entire pizza to the nearest tenth? All right, so what we have here is this. The length of my slice is 9 inches, okay? So if you think of this in terms of pizza, so here's my pizza. When they say the length, what they're really giving us, the length of a slice, is this. It would be my radius. So if you can imagine, here's my pizza slice. And the length of it was 9 inches, which would make it my radius. Okay? So we now know that my radius is actually equal to 9. So with that information, we want to find what is the area of this pizza. Okay? And we are going to approximate it. That means we're actually going to calculate it with a calculator, 3.14. So we just have to remember the formula for area is pi times r to the second, which is going to equal pi times my radius is 9 to the second, which gives me pi times 81. And now we just have to calculate this. So it's basically 3.14 times 81 into our calculator. And our area of this pizza is 254.34. Okay, so that's our calculation, but if you notice, we want to approximate it to the nearest inch, which means we have to round using inches. So we don't want any decimals in this particular problem, so the rounding, hopefully you learned this in elementary school, is we want to cut it off at the whole number 4, but we look here, does this number after our cutoff point, does it change our number 4? Does it move it up or keep it the same? Since this number is less than 5, it keeps the 4 the same. So our final answer, if we round it correctly, is 254 inches. All right. Okay, guys, we will save example G for class.